Hello and welcome to today's Argyle Digital webinar, Soaring with the Cloud, Optimize Your Cloud Journey with a Holistic Management Approach. My name is Victoria Warwick with Argyle, and it is wonderful to have everyone joining us here today. I have a few administrative details to share with you, and then I will turn things over to our esteemed speakers. First, we would like to thank VMware for their partnership with today's event. They've been a wonderful thought leadership to partner with Argyle, and they are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. So thank you again to VMware for joining us today. We welcome you to stay socially connected during today's event. For those of you who are active tweeters, please feel free to follow us on Twitter at Argyle Exec Forum. I also would like to take a moment to touch on our content neutrality policy, which we've curated based on the feedback that we've received over the years from our members. Argyle is very proud and protective of this policy as it reflects our commitment to ensure the neutrality and overall value of the content presented at our events. We work closely with our speaking faculty to ensure that you receive a set of balanced and neutral viewpoints during the session today, and we appreciate our members' support of this policy. Finally, and most importantly, we want to hear from you. So please submit all questions that come up during today's event into the chat section of the interface. Following the panel discussion, we have set aside some time for our speakers to weigh in on these questions. So we have two wonderful panelists that will be joining us in our discussion later today. But first, I'd like to welcome Roy Rithaler, Vice President of Cloud Management at VMware, for his introductory presentation. Welcome, Roy. Over to you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with the members of Argyle. I've always enjoyed this community, having interacted with it in the past, and thank you, Victoria, for making this so easy. Welcome, everyone. My name is Roy Rithaler. I'm speaking to you from the wonderful confines of Texas, Central Texas in the San Antonio area, but hopefully I'm reaching a wide audience all across the US and globally. Today I'm going to talk to you about the universal approach that we believe in strategically around cloud management, the importance of cloud management, and some practical tips and techniques in terms of getting into cloud management in a more holistic way. And as we go through that, I'm going to try to make it as relevant as possible with customer examples, real world examples, and so on. And we'll have a time at the end, of course, to answer questions, to talk to some esteemed panelists, get their perspective, and then I'll come together and hopefully get a lot of value out of the session. So one thing I always like to start with is kind of a view of where our market is today. And this is some joint research and combined research we've done with the Forrester Agency as well as with our own internal data polling across the VMware customer base. If you net it down, the marketplace is speeding up. It is moving in an app-centric, app-first direction, and that is resulting in a steady, consistent high growth usage of cloud resources. This has been going on for a period of time now. As we all know, the time of the pandemic and of COVID has only accelerated these trends. The pandemic has been an accelerator to the digital transformation, and it's moved people from low gear into high gear if they were at all hesitant. So products in today's world are no longer, traditional products. Every product that we sell for profit or for customer loyalty or for our citizens are always a combined digital and non-digital platform. And for that reason, the world has become both an application-driven world, but also the value that we get from our applications is really driven by agility. Now, agility is something I've been involved with for 20 years now, from the start of agile software development. It's probably an extremely overused word, but it's still a word, and it's still a word that has meaning and it has value. In today's customers, large banks, small banks, non-financial services, retail, you name it, government services, agility, getting services in the hands of your customers, getting in the hands of your citizens and your stakeholders quickly with feedback to incrementally improve is the name of the game. That's what customers expect. They've been trained to do this for a period of time now, and doing it well versus doing it poorly makes a difference between profit and loss, makes a difference between loyalty and churn and lack of retention. So it is an application driven game with all of the new technologies, including containers, serverless, topology or serverless ways to go develop those applications and release them in an agile way. It also means multiple clouds. It means not just one cloud provider, but typically a handful, if not 2 or 3, 5 or 6. And also it means release processes around development, DevOps and DevSecOps that allow you to quickly and easily deliver your applications into clouds. Now, the cloud in and of itself has a set of different characteristics. Your infrastructure has to be reliable. It has a far different blast zone. It has a different risk profile. So you have to make sure that while agile, the cloud has to be very responsive, but it also has to be there, and it has to be incredibly resilient and reliable and performant for your applications. That's kind of the landscape that I want to talk about today. We believe that the solutions of tomorrow and today are those that understand this world, understand the requirements for speed, for cost containment, minimizing risk, but they do it in a way that abstracts you away from too many of the details of the infrastructure, too many of the details of the release process, more and more abstraction so that you can focus on the actual transformation, the application logic, getting it out to your customers. And that's what I think the entire technology business is building on. And that's clearly what we're doing here at VMware as well. So our strategy kind of has 3 phases, which reflects the reality of what I just talked about. One is at the top, I'm in a group called Cloud Management. And what Cloud Management does is actually manages that interface between the application and the infrastructure in a way that's fast, it's relatively inexpensive, and it reduces your risk. It doesn't work without it being aware of the applications that are running inside of it. The days of complete separation between the infrastructure and the applications that run on top of it are gone. And there are a number of application technologies, Kubernetes being one of them, but serverless being another, a variety of technologies that allow the infrastructure not just to be performant, but also that allows the application to take advantage of the advantages of that infrastructure, of the characteristics like resilience, like security, like identity. So we have an application environment that requires a flexible infrastructure and requires fast scalability up and down and so on. And those things are available today. The key for the management technology is to bridge into that infrastructure. And whether you're on the left on this slide, VMware based, because we're VMware. If you're VMware based and you're relying on that infrastructure in order to port and to run your applications, great. We need to be able to provide you with the interface and the in-between of the ability to schedule, deliver, run, monitor, avoid issues in that environment. But even more importantly, we need to be able to allow you to do it across a multiple cloud portfolio and have the same kind of characteristics, whether it's an in-house cloud or even more importantly, an external cloud. I have a number of customers. I was just on the phone this morning with one of our customers, large global brand. That large global brand, has a 1+3 platform strategy. They want to provide a consistent but also selectable set of services up to their application developers across a number of cloud properties, whether that application group got to that cloud through history, through preference, through services inside the cloud. They get to choose what they want. There's a consistent set of standard interfaces and things like identity that they provide at a consistent level. Maybe Kubernetes is a packaging technology and an orchestration, but they're actually applying it across multiple cloud instances, multiple cloud types, whether it's an Amazon, an Azure, a VMware riding on one of those, or a VMware built public cloud or private cloud data center. That kind of strategy is commonplace in the industry now, or is becoming commonplace. And it allows for massive consumption by developers of that infrastructure in a seamless way that keeps them out of the infrastructure game and productive on their applications. I had a very similar conversation with a medium-sized bank in Sweden recently, same kind of idea, where they had a very strong private cloud initiative coupled with a very strong public cloud initiative, and they wanted a level of abstraction and a level of consistency across both of those, giving themselves a degree of price performance and a degree of business choice in terms of where to land their services in the future and to optimize their services that they have now. So the way we look at it from a VM, our point of view, our opinion on this is that you need a cloud control plane from a management point of view that allows you both at first and foremost to intelligently and in a high performance way consume all the clouds that are underneath you. And if you happen to be a VMware customer already, and it's very ubiquitous from an infrastructure point of view, to present a very price performant interface for that cloud, for the VMware-based cloud, inside that portfolio of clouds, so that you have an overriding view of both the access, performance, cost of all of the clouds in your portfolio. But then when it comes to VMware, have a good solid selection of that, and the workloads that you're running there have the ability to be competitive with the workloads that are running, say, in Amazon. And this strategy's worked out really well. A lot of our customers are embracing it because it also allows them to go from and to, from one place to another place. Now, in order to do this, we have done a few things with our product set. So, and I think from a vendor point of view, we provide a very unique view because we're intrinsically now a multi-cloud management provider. One of the things that's important when you look at the space is, while many data centers will run on-premises software because they're running on premises for a long time, many of our customers are moving to a SaaS form factor. And they're doing it not just to do it because they have a cloud first initiative or they find it more agile for management and establishing that control plane. They also see that there's a set of services they can only get in cloud. So for example, we have classic products in our environment around automation that allow you the self-service experience, that allow you rapid delivery and so on. We have classic products in operation that allow you assurance, avoiding problems, troubleshooting, optimizing capacity, those sorts of things. Okay, those are available now, and they should be available from your vendor on both sides. Whether you prefer to run it on-prem and have a grooved environment around that, or you want to move it to and transform to SaaS, you should be able to have that choice. There are other services like our AI component, where we allow, our vision is self-driving cloud, self-driving workloads. We have a product called vRealize AI Cloud that's only available in a SaaS form factor. And the reason for that is the scale required to do the AI that you need to do, at enough of a scale with enough real-timeness and computability to get it done. Very difficult, or more difficult to do on-prem. We've chosen, and most of our customers have chosen with us, hey, go do that up in the cloud. Same thing with our Cloud Health product all the way over to the right. The Cloud Health product provides portfolio management across your cloud properties, gives you real-time access into costing across an Amazon or a VMware cloud or an Azure, whatever. That's really only doable from a cloud point of view. It's really difficult to do it in any other way. So you're going to have these exclusive services in your control plane that are SaaS only. And if I'm really going to say it, the vast majority of our customers are moving from the on-prem world into SaaS, SaaS being where they're going to locate that multi-cloud control plane. But again, you got to have choice. One of the things that goes with that, and this is just an example, is your vendor, whoever they happen to be in the management space. Gone are the days of annual upgrades, even though they still exist in your data center, or semi-annual or quarterly. Again, from a risk point of view, you're going to see features come out of your core cloud-based services much more quickly. And like our customers, we have a cloud-first policy where, using SaaS and using the ability to deliver quickly allows us to innovate more quickly and deliver stuff to you more quickly. So you're starting to see, and you've seen now for a while, our cloud properties getting features that you need much more quickly and more responsively. Not only are we going faster, we're listening better, and we're actually closing that loop in a more virtuous way, which is a good thing. Okay, so you'll start to see that, and you should expect it. The other thing you can expect out of this is when you have acquired some new things. Over the last 12 months, we've acquired, technology from one of our partners called Medora. We bought their data center and cloud extensibility plugins for our operation products. We acquired a company called SaltStack, which is one of the leaders around event-driven automation, open source event-driven automation. You want that stuff to be able to plug into your environment quickly. And again, SaaS really helps you with that because it allows an integration environment, abstracts you away from the details, and allows that to be delivered very quickly. So something to look out for in your environment. Having done all that, the other thing that we've done sort of from a holistic and a universal perspective is to to integrate all of these features and functions into a single offering. Our customers, like I said, VMware has an interesting position, and I think a unique position in the industry, in that we come at it from a intrinsically multi-cloud point of view, whether it's on our infra or not on our infra. We understand sort of the multi-cloud, and we don't have that much invested capital in one cloud over another cloud and sort of a siloed view. So we decided from a management point of view, based on what customers asked us, is basically what they asked for is give me one subscription. I would like to have a really simple financial interface with you. I want to buy one thing, but I want that one thing to be give me a couple of choices. One, I'd like it to be comprehensive. So if I'm going to build a management control plane, and I'm going to use that control plane in order to regulate where my workloads are, to provide overall acceleration and agility, I want one place to build it. I want one platform for it. Offer that to me. Don't offer me a bag of doorknobs. Don't offer me a million piece parts. So that was one. The other is I would like to have a choice to move to SaaS, but I'd like to do it at my own pace. So one subscription, comprehensive set of services, and allow me to do the migration as I see fit based on my business decision. And that's what we have focused on. And it's been a very successful play, a very successful offering in the market that we call vRealize Cloud Universal, where we offer those services I just showed you, one subscription, ability to run the core services on-prem or not, and move at your pace, and it's comprehensive and growing. So it's one of those ways, if you're, the management layer is one of those layers where you benefit from simplicity and abstraction. It's something to really strongly consider in terms of your strategy moving forward. As an example, I like to talk about customers. I'd like to talk less about VMware and like what we do and more about what customers are achieving. One of the customers that we have many in this area, but one that I chose that I thought was an interesting one and a little bit different from what you normally hear is the Arizona State of Economic Security. So state of Arizona, as all public entities over the last 12 plus months in these unique times, has had a lot of challenges in terms of making sure their citizenry gets new services. New services had to be rolled out. We have multiple examples of this all around the world, but new things in front of their stakeholders and in front of their customers. In addition, in a kind of a massive economic constraint environment, and a changed way to do work, and a changed way to do delivery, and a changed way to offer services. In the preceding the pandemic, state of Arizona had anticipated some of this and had already mandated a cloud first initiative where if they could get to cloud and they could do something that was cloud first, which is pretty pervasive, they would. And they would move there as fast as they could to pick up the benefits of agility and the flexibility that their application developers and their partners wanted. They chose the platform I just talked about as a way to do this, but to do it in a way that they could gauge the benefit, they could move to that kind of a platform in a risk-controlled environment and a cost-controlled environment. Like the idea of moving quickly is great, but you need to move quickly, but in a way where you can manage the costs, manage the trade-offs across clouds, manage the trade-offs of where you locate your services, and do it in a way not only that's cost effective, but also do it in a way that doesn't have any issues from a risk point of view. And that's what we offered them. They're moving into our automation platform in order to provide the services in a self-serve way, in a fast way, in a secure way. And they're moving into our operations in order to assure the base, make sure it's properly avoiding, there are no outages essentially. So we're pretty psyched to be working with state of Arizona, but there are hundreds of other customers like this that we're working with because we think this is the new platform. There was a beautiful quote that their deputy CIO provided. Lovely, the combination of being able to do it at the pace that you want to do it, but get it done, move into that cloud platform, and using management to move other applications across and intelligently into the cloud is what they were after. So that's my basic presentation. We'll get into more questions and more discussion around this kind of a theme in the next section. So back over to you, Victoria. Thank you.
Of course, thank you, Roy, for that wonderful presentation. I'm sure we have questions coming in, and of course, we will address those at the end of the event. So please keep them coming. So before we kick off the panel discussion, I would like to invite our two panelists to come on camera so that we can begin. So I'm happy to welcome Tracy Wu, guest speaker over at Forrester, and Emilio Segura, Principal Systems Engineer, Cox Automotive, Compute virtualization solutions. Roy is going to begin the panel discussion and moderate from here. So Roy, I'll turn the floor back to you to get started. Thanks, everyone. I apologize.
Let me start with my microphone on. Welcome, Tracy. Welcome, Emilio. I thought maybe we'd start really quickly with a quick introduction. Tracy, and then Emilio, would you like to introduce who you are, where you're from, what you do?
Okay, I'll get started. My name is Tracy Wu. I am a senior analyst on the infrastructure and operations team at Forrester Research. I cover cloud management and hybrid cloud management, cost management, and just that overall general area.
And Emilio?
My name is Emilio Salguero. I'm the principal system engineer for compute virtualization for Cox Automotive, wonderful company. Basically, my background is system administration, database virtualization since 2.5. So working also with new platforms with the POC with Tanzu, Kubernetes, and NSXT as well too. So those are products we're evaluating in our proof of concepts.
All right. Welcome, Tracy. Welcome, Emilio. I know you both.
Thank you.
So let's get into it a little bit. I'm going to moderate the question and answer session. Here we are. I have three basic areas. We're going to talk a little bit of strategy. We're going to talk about future proofing, and we're going to talk about pragmatic steps in getting started. So basically that order. Maybe I'll start with you, Tracy. I wanted to talk a little about, we use the word holistic in the title. Holistic is one of those SAT words if you're an American. I'd like your opinion on what holistic, what does it mean to have a holistic approach? And what does it mean from a sustaining perspective, getting into, how do you define holistic? And what do you think it means for customers or for the people?
Okay. In terms of a holistic approach, so this is not just about management of workloads and placement strategies. You're also thinking about things like policy violations, resource provisioned. How does that affect your budgeting for this week, for your month, for this year? And you're not just talking about managing across, one specific cloud environment or in your data center. You're talking about managing across many different environments. And this is something that is important to think about all of the different moving pieces, so you don't get caught without doing the proper audits or leaving resources or app dependencies behind.
Amelia, you're nodding your head. Why are you nodding your head?
I would agree with that 100%. It's a holistic approach in a sense from the business unit, from the cost savings and cost driven. So it's just a whole package that has to be done correctly the first time. And I agree with Tracy 100%. It's a whole approach from top to bottom.
Do you think from we haven't rehearsed any of this for the folks listening, like from that point of view, do you think the top-down approach, a lot of times people feel, wow, that's going to lead to monolithic thinking, it's not distributed enough. Where do you think the trade-off is? Why do you guys advocate a top-down? Maybe Tracy, you start with that. Why does that help you? Why is it more effective?
It's important to not get stuck in any sort of thinking, but it is important to understand all of the different variables and factors that are coming into play. So when you're thinking about your cloud strategy, you have a lot of different stakeholders. You have your finance team, your executive team, your app developers, your cloud team. They all have different ideas of what that cloud strategy should look like. They all ultimately want the same motivation, but they're coming about it from different angles. Because of that, you need to start taking into account not just what are the different points of views of different stakeholders, but what are the reasons why they would be focused on those different areas. So, this is going back to your costs, your security, your policies. It's just understanding that all of these different factors and variables that you're dealing with, they will all start to affect each other. And if you're not thinking about it in terms of a holistic approach, chances are you'll be caught flat-footed. There'll be data breaches. There'll be major issues that you'll have to deal with down the road.
Emilio, any other thoughts around that?
I see it from the same way from Tracy sees it, but I also look at it from more of a cost perspective. Being with COVID-19, we had strategized something different so that we can stay effective, efficient, and definitely cost plays a big factor with everything. So, but at the same time, open to different ideas and how we could look at that cloud holistically and match it together with everyone. So I agree with Tracy 100%. Is basically, for me, is a lot of cost driven as well too. So we don't want to drop the ball on that too as well.
Yeah. Totally makes sense. Okay, so let's get down a level. I'll start with you, Emilio. How do you make it real? Like, how do you make this practical? What are some of the best practices of doing this? You're thinking big here. How do you do it at Cox Automotive?
Well, first, obviously, we work. Very fortunate to have TAM services. Tom Rafferty is one of my great guys at VMware with our TAM services. He actually gets us the subject matter experts to look at these products, evaluate them, look at the pros and cons, look how they can benefit our BUs, cost-effective strategy. Overall, every way he gives us that assistance to make sure we're looking at these different moving parts holistically and how they affect the business and how we could actually transform it into a smoother solution for us.
Okay, very good. And Tracy, you're an independent consultant. You do this for a living. How would you look at it in terms of making it happen?
So a lot of it is just thinking about, thinking about your current portfolio of applications. That's kind of where we start at. If your current apps are within the scope of your cloud strategy in terms of what you're thinking about, you need a thorough assessment of it. And so these can be things like application rationalization, portfolio assessment, and this is meant to free up budget or time for meaningful workloads or even help with increasing stability or optimized configuration. And generally, we tell companies to identify and prioritize any sort of application modernization efforts in 3 different categories between your high priority, your next priority, and your low priority. So high priority would be applications that provide shared business services. These could be functions that include billing, pricing, scheduling, identity authentication services. Next priority would be things that manage business operations. So these could be core systems that are closest to the customer, that automate processes at the heart of a firm's purpose. And then lowest priority applications that kind of manage business records. So often we call these like systems of record. They're used to manage the integrity of the data and kind of inform the many business processes. And so these could be things like financial results, product and material inventories. Those are just some of the things that we think about. And other things are kind of like committing to, say, relentless automation and development of operations. So for instance, the initial gains of focusing on this modernization are quick, and the economic replacement of outdating core apps can be really helpful. But thinking about automating not only the functional and the integration testing, but also security scanning as well to kind of cut delivery speed and also widen coverage.
Is there any way
now automating more tasks, things that we could do more ease? And someone like Tracy, I'll be working with in that sense of identifying all those costs and pains with the business units to identify so that we can have that smooth transaction when it comes to moving to that platform.
Yeah, I love the phrase relentless automation. I'm going to use that one. I mean, it's true, and we see it across a lot of customers. Are there any other, when you're a customer and you're looking at how to do this and seeing where others have gone before you, how do you think about it from a measurement perspective? How do you know you've reached them? How do customers intelligently do that? It's clearly not a waterfall 1-year project. How do they split these things up, and how do they measure the next level and the next level? Anything around that, Tracy?
I mean, a lot of the automation thing, I think it's less about have you reached a level and then okay, I brush my hands off, everything's done. It's going to be this continuous improvement of automation within different processes and operations. You speak about waterfall methods. Most folks think about it in terms of agile methods and processes, even though this is a term that's been floated around for a few decades now. There's still a lot of companies that are trying to get used to this idea of iterating incrementally, iterating on a more frequent basis. And so in terms of, have you reached a level where your automation is where you want it to be? It really depends on your business goals, your technical targets, and whether you've reached an area that is satisfactory to all of the stakeholders involved.
Right, and I would agree. That's a constant improvement that we have here too with our automation process, where we want to make it something so simple for the customer to go into a portal like a service station and click on a T-shirt size, and they can have their stuff automated properly as they want. So that's a space that we're in actually that we are improving every week. And like one of the things that Tracy would mention too is for us is like having the typical administrator just to do a virtual machine, things like now we have that automated for us. So something that takes about an hour, 45 minutes, it's done in minutes for us. So that gives us time to set our engineers to move other tasks that they need to do for us for the organization.
Okay, you've teed up my next question beautifully. Okay, so we've kind of talked about automation as one aspect of management. How do you see, I made an assertion when I was doing the presentation. I said, management is the key technology in the interface between the application world and application delivery and the infrastructure world. How do you see a holistic management approach? Do you see it as mandatory? What are some of the key tenets around that in this kind of a transformation or a holistic approach or holistic strategy? Tracy, maybe you'll start. I was going to go to you first. So, Tracy?
Okay, great. Okay, so when you're thinking about a holistic approach to management, the biggest concern that companies will have is around security. This is the top concern that we've surveyed across companies in terms of what are your biggest fears for adopting cloud. That being said, it still is not what keeps people from adopting. It's just a major concern because what you need to do is you need to be thinking about security in a much different way. It's less about perimeter-based security. It's more about securing data workloads. And it's something, that companies need to think about. They need to think about securing their cloud data, their hybrid cloud deployments, their platform as service, and then kind of apply these sort of different cloud security controls. Things that folks will think about are things like regulatory and compliance requirements, like your SOC Type 2s, your ISO 27000s, requirements like your HIPAA, your PCI DSS. They'll require you to check compliance of your cloud provider's core IaaS or PaaS hosting platforms, as well as the business apps they run on themselves. That's something that business apps will, falsely claim that cloud platforms will provide compliance, but it does not. And so it's just thinking about these sort of security angles. Other things too are like making sure that workload migrations adhere to cloud data and route sovereignty measurements. So things like GDPR and other compliance regulations, they mandate things like that the design and management of systems must be done with privacy in mind, that you must keep data in jurisdiction. So, countries like in New Zealand, for example, mandate that their data cannot even move through networks in other countries. So these are sort of things and topics that companies think about, security being the first thing. The other side of it is cost management. So, beyond just thinking about budget, forecasting, allocation, it's also about how do you get all of your stakeholders on board so that they understand what the goals and targets of the company are. You have your app developers that are thinking about, we're going to provision the most amount of resources to develop the application as quickly as possible. You have your finance team that's just thinking about minimizing costs, your executive team that's looking at performance, and your cloud team that's kind of trying to mediate all of these different stakeholders. So being able to find a common ground where each is understanding each one's motivations, and then making sure that their actions align to the business targets involved are a big part of, cost management and making sure that everyone is on the same page.
Right. Tracy hits on a good point with both for us. The security is always number one with the metadata and protecting the business function and protecting the business metadata. Always key. And it's something that we work with our security team with any particular project that touches anything with finance or anything that metadata that has to go in and out of the data centers. So definitely security is one of those things that it's always big in our topics and always a number one concern when we look at applications to modernize anything in our data centers.
I think it's really cool. I mean, I think of the, speed is often at odds with cost, is often at odds with risk. They all have to work together and achieve the balance. Is there any way that management product, management tech, that's kind of what they do. It's a little bit of their bread and butter. We do it in our platforms. How do you actually organize around that? Is there a committee? Is there a center of excellence? How are customers getting it done? And I'll start with Tracy to go over the really. How do you do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most companies will have some cloud center of excellence. It starts first with your two leaders, your cloud architect, but then also your business lead. Those two are going to be the most important role players. Your business lead is someone that's very good at making relationships within the company, someone who's well connected, someone who's able to relay the goals of the cloud team, but then also relay back to the cloud team the goals of the business itself. Your cloud architect is going to be someone that really understands the cloud architecture, implementation, the various network infrastructure requirements of the company, and making sure that that happens. So those are the ones that are thinking about in terms of the cloud team. And then you have generally someone that's coming in from the executive side or the strategy side that's implementing the overall vision of the cloud strategy itself. And those sorts of areas are ones that focus on, is this aligning with what our vision is? Is this really what we're focusing on? We talk about the 3 different pillars of cloud strategy as being build, migrate, and modernize. And it may be that we're focused on, say, migrating X amount of applications to the cloud by this time frame, but it may be that the overall sentiment of the company is actually modernization or building new apps, and that makes more sense for the company as well. So you need someone that kind of understands, that sees the conversation from all different stakeholders, and then understands how it aligns with the business and knows when to pivot when necessary.
Right, and I think for me, where the value is added as well too is having your VMware, TAM support and things like that can help us get to those goals and look for those kind of goals. And sometimes when we work with those TAM representatives, they have that skill where they understand the business strategy, helps the translate it to the engineer of how we need to focus, how we need to push it out. What are we looking for? What do we want to accomplish? What do we want to do for cost savings? So the partnership with VMware is very important for me, especially because we do venture off to a lot of good stuff that we look at, a lot of good products that we have in our organization that we use. So the relationship for us is very important with VMware to get to those concepts and to make sure that we cover those areas and that we have an ear, such as Tracy, because it's something that we always would listen to the business units, understand what is it that is necessary in the requirements from a security standpoint, metadata from a cost perspective. So Tracy's definitely on the money on that too.
Yeah, this is really good. You guys are this is fun. I think, again, unrehearsed, we're good. We're talking a little bit about alignment here, kind of landing and making sure that the cloud that you're building and your stakeholders are aligned around the purpose. Do you think, I think, Tracy, you talked about the fact that there needs to be an executive with a strategy, a business, and an architectural person at the table. Are there any other roles that you need there, or is that the starting point and then it grows? How do you look at that?
That would be the starting point. You need an executive sponsor who helps push this initiative forward. You need someone that's thinking about your SaaS and cloud strategy as a whole. But then you also need that person that's kind of a business lead for the cloud team. So someone that can act as an intermediary that creates the right relationships to be able to communicate the business needs back to the cloud team and vice versa. And then you have your cloud architect teams. Then you start to fill it out into other different areas. So you have your system admin, your application operations person that's understanding your portfolio, doing the portfolio analysis, which areas to modernize, which areas that you need to migrate. You have your security aspects, and then you have your vendor broker, someone who's communicating with all the different vendors and making sure that what's being asked is actually being put in play.
Correct.
Yeah, I think we brought that up. Okay, that's cool. Little concentric diagrams that kind of grows out. You kind of add as you need it from the portfolio of the people. Okay, I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I'm going to talk about, this is all good and how to get it done and how to build it. But then there's the classic, if you build it, will they come? How do you get users and developers or business users that actually pick up the building. Any thoughts about that, or any good stories, or any good examples of customers that do, they develop a cloud strategy, but it's user focused, and users actually pick up the services in a big way. Tracy, you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of getting buy-in in terms of your cloud strategy, it's good to start with a line of business. So this is something that my previous role was at PDC. I was working in corporate strategy. They're an enterprise software company. They were right on the cusp of adopting a cloud strategy. And so what they did first was start with one of the lines of business that was already, a SaaS-based application, did that, and then use that model to kind of replicate across all of the other lines of business, so that they had one group that was sort of organizing, testing out ideas, testing out strategies, and then using that to kind of replicate and build that across the entire organization.
Emilio, how do you get people to use your cloud implementation?
You got to give everyone everyone has to be a stakeholder. That's number one. Understand they have some stake in it, and to improve their business units or the application of their products, anything that can increase revenue for the company is something that we try to gear towards the product and say, hey, this save you time, cost, deployments, working with DevOps teams and getting out different types of services. So, I mean, that's the way, we usually approach this, is having, people who can have a stake in the product, a stake in a component, and help us drive exactly what they want to get to, how to use the product effectively for their business units. Sounds
like you're more like a product manager. I'm serious. So do you have developers at the table? Do you say developers want this, or do you use a BizOps?
We actually do work with business units. We do work with engineers, like DevOps people. Yeah. So I'm more of the engineering side as well too. So I get to engage with that customer service because they're our customers, regardless. DevOps, wherever it is, business units, they're our customers. So we definitely give them as much as possibility to our vision and what we're trying to do to enhance and how we can help them advance their business. So, I mean, again, everything is driven with a stake. Everyone has to have a stake in this particular project to get it going, to make it work for the business.
A little follow-up on it, I'm riffing again, but in terms of measurements, like I've been on plenty of projects where early days of cloud, they built it, nobody came, they had to build it again, that sort of thing. And I've always been a fan of building use of the cloud, appropriate use and appropriate scale into the measurements of the program to begin with. If we're going to do it, we do it for a reason. Do you have a good example of how you measure that sort of thing? Or do you measure that sort of thing? How do you look at it?
Well, when we work with certain developers or certain people with application, we create different types of scorecards or things that we want to compare with the products and see the pros and cons between either a Tanzu product versus a Docker product or a Rancher product. So we have all the developers, or we have the people who manage the application. We sit there, we go through the things that we want to go through. And the good thing about it is that I do have a good manager as well too, who actually pushes some of these projects for us to see what can we do with this product, how we can use this, how we can level it to our advantage. What are the cost savings? What are the drivers for us to look at these types of components and products? So again, this is where we engage with VMware to have all these particular products to look to see how we can use these products to take advantage, especially from a security standpoint, and obviously from a cost perspective as well too.
Tracy, any thoughts about that? How to measure that?
I mean, the easiest way to do that is to just pick up a cost management or cloud management solution. That really helps to be able to measure those sort of different areas to make sure and hold everyone accountable, to make sure that they're following specific budgets or forecasting. It's also a way to implement different types of policies. Any sorts of violations that happen either inside or outside of the portal is something that can be flagged and either delivered via like some sort of messaging system, like an email or a chat ops type solution.
Right. Okay, cool. That's good. And the corollary question is not you build it, will they come? It's they come in droves, and you have to scale your solution. And a lot of
you definitely have to be a good salesperson to get the technology out, and that's what's also important for me as an engineer, is to have that people skill to talk to the business units and talk to the actual people who's actually pushing out the work. the engineers, we forget the engineers are the one that's pushing the work, working the night stuff, troubleshooting the issues, working with vendors. It's just not just, management and cost. It's the people really doing the work as well too. It's who I grind with, I work with, to understand their needs, because at the end of the day, those are the guys who's pushing the codes. And we want to make sure that we're giving them exactly what VMware and our organization has promised to do.
Okay. Any thoughts on, excellent. I mean, that's dead on, right? That is totally dead on. That's how you get there.
People forget the little guys, that's us.
They're the users, right? They're the ones that Tracy, any good best practices around designing in scale or thinking about scale from a systems or holistic point of view in the structures that you talked about in these kind of teams?
The first thing we'd say is assess the current state of your assets. So this is especially in terms of existing investment or maturity. If you had like a new data center that was just built, or a colo contract just started, or you just refreshed your server environment, then radically changing your cloud and data center approach would fail to kind of help amortize these investments. But similarly, if you have heavy SaaS use that requires network investment and delayed infrastructure refreshes, or failed DR tests that may force immediate outsourcing. So just take a step back and realize where you are within your current strategy, and consider your own assets in any sort of parallel strategies. Things that we'd say is also balance your priorities. So choose to focus on building new apps or optimizing existing ones. Make sure that you've done a complete portfolio analysis of your applications, and this is one of the most common balancing acts, is this commitment to acquiring new apps and functionalities versus modernizing and moving existing ones. And successful cloud strategies, they will help to identify these sort of priorities. So making sure that you have your checklist of understanding and making a clear call on the amount of effort that you're going to place on each endeavor, so that you're just not, digging down rabbit holes and kind of spinning your wheels in areas that aren't productive to the business.
That's excellent.
Right. We have a similar strategy as well too, where we have, a group of architects that we work with from different groups, different stakeholders within the IT group that joins, and we get different opinions if we wanted to approach it this way or this product. We get input from every team, from storage, from networking, from architects, from engineers, which is all valuable for us. And we do have a committee where we go through these processes to see if we want to approve those projects just to move forward, to see if it's something that we want to invest in time. So we're very fortunate to have an organization where we do have those particular groups and stakeholders, or just people that are high level position that help us to grind out exactly how we want to accomplish this, or do we want to take a look at it or move forward with it, or have a technical discussion. So we're very fortunate to have those type of groups in our organization.
It really translates to business results. That's the thing. The stuff that you're doing is making your business successful. It directly translates into being better for your customers and driving, what you need to do from a business point of view. I was thinking, like Tracy, it's the counterbalance between make sure you're holistic and you're looking at it from a portfolio and all in, and the harsh mirror of reality of what you're not.
Right.
Okay. Last words. We're getting close to the end here. We got a few questions coming in. So I'm going to ask you one last set of thoughts, and that is, we're talking really big here, but I'd like you to leave the audience with one set of thoughts that they shouldn't forget. When you're looking at things holistically, when you're looking at it strategically, you want to be what would you leave our audience with? So Tracy,
So not to get too philosophical, but get specific about your goals before jumping into the decision about public, private, complex sourcing algorithms that kind of determine the fate of what your cloud strategy should look like. Determine, say, what are the greater purposes to your strategy? What specific efficiencies, productivity targets are you trying to meet? What sort of process and resources will you need to be able to put that into play? And why are those important? So really have some deep soul searching in terms of why is this important to the organization, not just about we need to get into these sort of scenarios because everyone else is doing it.
Right, and I think just to add into it, I think just having the partnership with your BUs, your customer, is extremely important. But also you want to have a vendor that understands your vision, your technology, and also looks at from a cost perspective, security. So that's very important. Like, again, I would always say that your partnership with your vendor, like for us would be VMware. It's very important for them to have that understanding of your vision and to see if we could bring that to alive to the customers. So for me, adding what Tracy said, is having that tight partnership with the BU, especially with the vendors as well too. That's what makes everything successful. It gets to translate from the manager, from Tracy to the vendor, and then to the engineers, and just all together to deliver that one product.
Yeah, I want to thank you. You know, this has been a great discussion. I think the two of you are a great team. I'm going to have to get you back together.
Crazy's awesome.
I was going to ask Victoria, any questions? If there are any additional questions, I'm sure there's a few from the audience. We have time for a couple. Anything we got out there, Victoria?
Sure. Well, thank you all so much, Roy, Tracy, Emilio. That was a great discussion. A couple questions came in. The first one, Roy, I believe is probably directed to you, but Tracy and Emilio, if you want to jump in as well. So one audience member is interested to hear VMware's perspective on the evolution from SDDC to the cloud, plus data-defined application plan. So Roy, would you like to kick us off on that?
Yeah, it's a big, wide question. I'll do my best. I think that, you know, VMware's been with this evolution from a data center to a software configured and defined data center to a cloud interface on top of that, it moving into a public cloud, native public cloud, all of that. I think that it is an evolution. There's a way of thinking of the scope at which we manage. And I think the management piece of it is the abstraction layer that always sits on top of any one of those configurations. The interfaces are more abstract. They drill down into the different subcomponents or sub-environments. But what's important is that coherent layer over the top, and that thing evolving as you evolve your underlying infrastructure. So from a tech point of view, it's staying current with the requirements of the customers. 10 years ago, the SDDC was built in order to run workloads that were reliable, but sure didn't change all that much, right? In today's world, the requirements of rapid delivery and cost and risk are way different, and that's required, at least 4 generations of API evolution, so that you can actually look at things from all of those perspectives, and you don't have to bring them together through, ad hoc automation or a fragile kind of environment. So I think that the industry's evolved, VMware's evolved along with it, and our structure and the collection of data inside that management layer and its abstraction through APIs has been critical for customers to address it, stay productive, keep people out of clicking buttons, writing automation, keep building stuff like that. And I think our customers are okay with that. Any thoughts, Tracy? Yeah, I got that one.
No, you nailed that one.
Yep.
Perfect. Excellent. So I'm going to move on to a couple other questions. And Tracy, let's start with you on this one because I believe you touched on security a little bit. So can you elaborate on some best practices to drive an app-aware or cloud management strategy that is secure? Maybe some best practices of solutions there could be beneficial.
Okay, great. So we touched a little bit about regulatory and compliance requirements, workload migrations to adhere to data and cloud sovereignty standards. There's also other things you need to think about. So protecting data, preventing breaches. Cloud obviously increases your security exposure as more of it is stored in more logical and physical places than within traditional on-premises environment. So if you're the custodian of the data and you're responsible for protecting it, regardless of the host, make sure that this data protection applies to all of your different environments. And this is not just within the cloud, it's also bare metal, containerized, serverless runtimes, databases, applications. Also, automate your risk profiling workloads. So a large number and size of hybrid cloud instances and data they contain means that can be, hacked, compromised to steal your data. So automatic cloud instance build and tear down that scales to dynamic performance requirements helps to make it impossible to follow these sort of on-premises static risk assessment patching, remediation workloads. So, look to do those sort of issues in order to automate the risk assessment and remediation. And then also have constant platform tooling changes and updates. Obviously this is not always going to be the most secure way, but in general, what you want to do is to focus on having the most up-to-date security that you have. So as a result, you have your cloud platforms, your other vendors, they're constantly introducing new ways to run workloads and security tooling. Make sure that you're staying up to date on what those new patches are.
Correct.
Something there as well.
No, she actually said everything, so she's good.
Perfect. And Roy, before I move on, do you have anything else to add?
One thing I've noticed in our customers is that customers have started to use, as one way to do some of this stuff, pipelining. And pipelining being a controlled workflow, not just for their application workloads, but also for their infrastructure that they're provisioning and for their management tooling there. If you use that kind of, as an example, that kind of a disciplined workflow, you can secure from end to end. You make sure that that's secured. You make sure the inputs is properly validated. And you have a very automated system to keep the whole stack and to keep their scale automated. So I've noticed customers have done over the last couple years. That's really exciting.
That's a great point. So I'm going to have time for two more questions, hopefully. Amelia, I'm going to start with you. You're somebody that uses some of these programs already. So how does vRealize scale as your cloud strategy becomes more complex?
Right. So we have a couple of good products that we use for vRealize. One of them is we use Operations Manager 8.2, 8.3, the latest versions. And it's very efficient for us how we use it for troubleshooting, custom dashboards, reporting. Also give it that deep layer in look as far as how things are working internally in the virtualization stack. At the same time, what I love about their product, it's learning the machine, the behavior. So it's an AI learning system as well too, using the type of product that we use is Operation Manager, and we use vRealize Automation, which is a very important component for us to keep out the human error and deploying and providing more services for our customers as well too. We also use our Log Insight as well too. So various different suites we use within vRealize suites to help us achieve with some of the alleviation with either troubleshooting or deployments or automation.
Here as well.
I'm sorry?
Oh, I was asking if Roy would like to jump in here as well.
Yeah, no, that was a really good answer. I mean, I always look at it, there's the classic scale up, scale out. I think the product that you want, so you realize, they have to have more and more, like in terms of scale up, more and more abstract interfaces, more and more functionality, and let the products kind of process those more efficiently. You scale out through things like federation and being able to take advantage of scale out architectures and a lot of that in the cloud. And I would also add scale down, which is every iteration of these kind of tooling, you want them to show improvement in terms of the amount of resources they can access, the scale that each individual instance can go after and can support, right?
And just to add as well too, if you see like vRealize as well too, those products are all tying in together as one interface. So they're kind of looking the same, so it's easy to drive as they continue to grow and get better. There's more alignment between the vRealize suites together, and it's all in one package now that it's looking like that way in that roadmap. And it helps you to do automation as well too within the application as well too. So you don't have to drive everything through a different component or tool. You could drive it within the Operations Manager too as well. So there's tons of benefits that you can move machines to different clusters using vRealize as well too. So there's tons of benefits with that product. Also, you can have application insight within the product as well too. So if you have MySQL or SQL or any particular systems, it can monitor that at depth level as well too. So you definitely want to have those understandings of the environment, what's happening, what's going on, so you can be more proactive instead of active.
I believe we are coming up on time, but this was a fantastic session. Some great insights that we learned today. I hope everybody in the audience can take away something. So thank you again to Roy, Tracy, and Amelia for joining us for another Argyle Digital webinar. We hope to see you all again soon and have a wonderful, safe rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
All right, bye.